The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, welcome to Catholic Chicago. I'm Father Greg Sakowitz, Rector of Holy Name Cathedral here in Chicago. To my left, great friend, Mark Teresi, who is in charge of the 175th, part of the co-chairing team for the Cathedral's 175th anniversary. And coming up this November, the Holy Name Cathedral, 150 years as a cathedral, and now 175 years as a parish. Morning, Mark, how are you?
Good morning, good. Beautiful mosaic in our courtyard. 100 parishioners worked on as part of our celebration. June 8th, I know you're going to have a program talking about the road to Emmaus, which is on Pentecost Sunday.
We're hoping to maybe fill the cathedral on Sunday, June 8th, 3 o'clock to 9 p.m. All are invited, no charge. And also, since we did our last podcast, incredible news. We have a whole new Holy Father, Cardinal Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV. I'm telling you, when I was doing radio and TV interviews last Thursday outside the cathedral, the atmosphere was electric.
Tell me about your quote in the Tribune.
A really interesting little story in that is when I first heard about the Holy Father being named, I watched TV for a second, saw the white smoke, looked outside the window, and saw the sun come out, kind of simultaneously. Someone said, what a coincidence, the sun came out at the exact moment when you saw the white smoke. And you think, what a coincidence. A coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. But then I had the 12 o'clock Mass. So I began the 12 o'clock Mass, not knowing the Pope's name, saw white smoke. So I told people at the 12 o'clock Mass, we have a new Holy Father, we don't know his name yet. During Holy Communion, as I'm distributing, a woman whispers in my ear and says, Father Greg, the new Pope is Cardinal Robert Prevost from Chicago. I was stunned. I said, thank you. At the end of Mass, I announced, I now know by name who it is. Cardinal Robert Prevost from Chicago has taken the name Pope Leo XIV. About 175 people at daily Mass exploded in applause, just exploded. And things have not changed since we...
a lot of energy.
A lot of energy, but we have a great program today. We have Lana Manikowski, is an author, certified life coach, and infertility advocate dedicated to helping women thrive after infertility. She's the founder of the Other Days Brunch and the host of So Now What podcast, creating spaces where childless women feel seen, understood, and empowered. Her new book, So Now What, a #1 new release on Amazon, offers a transformative roadmap for embracing life beyond infertility, helping women reclaim joy, meaning, and a sense of belonging without the children long for. Join us this morning on Catholic Chicago is Lana Manikowski. Lana, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation.
Now, you need to know, Mark, and for our listeners, is that I have known Lana and her husband, Jack, because our great friend, Wayne Majars, Wayne's first cousin is your husband, Jack, and Wayne gave us the idea to have you on the program. But Lana, I've known you and Jack since shortly after you were married, 16 years ago, and you look younger than ever. And by the way, your birthday was yesterday.
Yes.
Belated, happy 29th birthday.
29 and holding.
And thing is, now you have written a new book. I'm going to hold it up here. So Now What? Create life you love without the children you always dreamed of. And what's fascinating is that this is groundbreaking. This is groundbreaking. So tell us something about this.
Yeah, well, my husband, Jack, and I married, and we thought we'd start our family, and we'd grow a family, and I never really considered that we'd have any challenges. But I was diagnosed with something called unexplained infertility. So there was no diagnoses of endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, like nothing that they could point to what was causing me not to be able to get pregnant. So then we started a treatment path to get some assistance in getting pregnant, which lasted about 7 years. And none of the treatments I went through or any of the interventions we had resulted in a pregnancy at all. So when we left our treatments without a child, I was stunned to find that there were no resources offered to me. There was not a therapist offered, there was not a book, a podcast, absolutely nothing.
And nothing with church either.
Nothing with church, and we relied heavily on our faith to get us through this. It's such a challenging time for anyone who's been through it, you know. And I felt like maybe I was the only one, because if there were more people who had dealt with this, there would have been more resources. And I sat alone for several years. So my last, I found out in 2018 that I wasn't going to become a mom, and it took until now to create these resources that I've started to create for the community.
And I remember some years ago at a gathering at Wayne's place for a party that you were there, Jack was there, and I remember you pulled me aside, Father Greg, can you pray with us? I remember praying with the both of you. This was before you were told you will not have children, and maybe in 2018, when you were told by the doctor or the team that, Lana, you will not bear a child and get pregnant, what was going through your mind?
I felt like in that moment, everything I thought my life was going to be just crumbled. And the future with my husband and the dreams I had of raising children together, everything just seemed to vanish. And I felt really helpless. I felt a lot of shame, because I thought, here's this thing that we were born to do, and biblically and historically, it's really what we've been thought to be the purpose of being a female, is to be able to bear children. And so I felt like I had let my husband down, I had let my in-laws, my parents, all these people that were cheering for us. I felt as though I had given them maybe some reason to think that I wasn't a whole woman.
How did you handle family? Because anytime you go through a celebration, the first question after you get married is, when are you going to have kids? How did you handle that?
Yeah, it's something that I never knew would affect me as much as it did. And I think people are well-meaning with their questions, and they want to be encouraging, or if they tell you, oh, God has his plan, or God has his timing, you look at that and you internalize it and think, well, what's wrong with me that God isn't seeing me?
Oh,
like,
wow.
Why am I the forgotten one? And so when people make those comments, it's hard to separate the internal reflection of yourself and the judgment of yourself, thinking everyone just is able to do this, and it's something that I'm expected to do.
So when people say something like, oh, it's God's will, God has a plan, things will be okay, people mean well, but they actually make the situation worse, because you can feel anger and guilt, and you don't know what I'm going through. And it just boggles my mind with you on the program today, as you said before the program began, that this is actually, we're dealing with groundbreaking territory, because I've been a priest 46 years. I've dealt with couples who are not able to have a child, and it never dawned on me, what resources do you have medically or from the local community of church? In 46 years of priesthood, this is the first time anyone's ever talked about it and how you're feeling. And I guess with that perspective is that when you're told in 2018, and now it's 2025, is what gave you the idea to write a book?
I think it was the desire to reach more people and create resources that I didn't have. And I think I learned that early on in my career. I had a manager who said, bring me any problem, but always have some sort of solution. It doesn't have to be the perfect solution. It doesn't have to be something that we're going to blast out on the TV, but just have some thought put into it. And that has always stuck with me, of being solution oriented. And that's what started my podcast back in 2021, where I told my story for the first time. I'm now 168 episodes into my podcast. And I want to find different ways to reach people in the way that they're waiting to be able to be reached. So I think the book is a really nice way that clinics and doctors and churches and different organizations can offer that to patients and people, and have them have something that they can actually hold on to and read at in the timing that's right for them.
Now speak a little bit about your husband, Jack. This is a resource now for women. What was, how did he live through the process of realizing I'm not going to be a father that I dreamed about being?
Yeah, it's been hard for him. He's not as vocal as I am, but he is so supportive of the work that I do. But, Father's Day is hard for him, just like Mother's Day can be really hard for women. That's why when you read my bio, I started something called the Other's Day Brunch. It happens the day before Mother's Day here in Chicago for women who don't have children, that they can come and feel in community with other women who know what it feels like to love your mother or love a mother figure but not feel connected to Mother's Day. So back to Jack, he doesn't talk about it much, but I see his support of me as something that shows me that he's behind all that I'm doing. And I think that he is feeling his voice being told, or his story being told through my voice. Yeah.
Now you've taken it to a level, Lana. You were big in the corporate world. You've actually stepped away from the corporate world and have gone into this full time. Say more about that.
Yeah, so 1 year ago, it was on the eve of my 50th birthday. I resigned from an extremely successful corporate career, and I realized that it was my calling to offer support for women that didn't have it, because I know what that felt like to be alone. And it has just been the most magnificent year watching this grow and being able to reach more women across the world. I work with women in Australia, in the UK, people everywhere, which is the beauty of Zoom. I can connect with women everywhere and through the podcast. And it's just something that I knew I needed to do. And the money in corporate America, yes, sure, we all want to have nice things, but for me, there's so much more I get out of doing this type of work.
Now talk about, it sounds to me like you responded to God's call. Here's your vocation. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, for so long I felt lost and I felt forgotten by God. And it was hard for me to struggle with my faith because I was raised in a very faithful family, and church and our church community was paramount. And that was something we always knew as kids on Sunday. That's what we do. And it was hard to feel as though I was a good Christian and feel as though I was committed to my church, because I felt like I just was not the chosen person to have a child. And I looked at so many people around me who had success with getting pregnant, and people who just, it just seemed like natural for them to do. And so it was hard for me to go to church, especially on Mother's Day. And again, not in opposition to mothers. I think mothers are beautiful and we should celebrate them, but it's hard sometimes to be in a faith-based organization or a faith-based church that talks about motherhood being the thing that most women have.
The ultimate.
The ultimate,
yeah.
yes. Sorry, I couldn't get my words out there.
Yeah.
But it's been challenging for me, but doing this type of work allows me to feel closer to God and allows me to see that that was His path for me. And at that time, I didn't really know that.
Yeah.
I remember some years ago I was talking with a woman in your situation, unable to have children, and she said to me, I look around our country, our world, the number of abortions where women don't want the child, and I want a child. With a husband, we want a child. And she said, I was so angry at God that we live in a disposable society, don't want a child, have an abortion. We want a child and able to have a child. We'll talk more about that, but Mark, take us to break.
Yeah, can I just add?
Oh, sure,
to
please
that?
do.
I do think your ministry will reach out to some of those women
I hope so.
because they're grieving.
Yes.
They're grieving.
It is a
That's a
grieving.
decision that they never abandon, and they're grieving that loss.
Yes.
So your ministry could be more expansive than you even dream about.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll be back in a few minutes. I want to make sure I'll hold this up. Where am I at? So, Lana Manikowski, the author of So Now What? Create a Life You Love Without the Children You Always Dreamed of. She's a prophetess in her own time. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
We're back, Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Teresa here with Lana Manikowski, the author of So Now What? Create a Life You Love Without the Children You Always Dreamed of. Earlier in the program, Father Greg talked about our new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. You're sitting with him in a room. This is a real issue for the church. What would you tell him?
Yeah. I'd love for him to consider, how can we make all women feel included and still feel close to their faith? How can we let their story be told in the importance of womanhood and motherhood beyond biological children?
Beautiful.
I like that. Now, what you're sharing with us so far, Lana, all those years trying to have a child, being told you can't, how has this book, not what you want to, but connect with it, how has this book touched your life?
Yeah, in so many ways, Father. I've been able to get words on paper that have been so deep inside of me and in some ways not processed. And so much grief. We talked about grief a little bit before break, but there is this significant grief that a lot of people don't recognize because you never physically lost something. But you had this dream that felt so real to you, and my whole life I thought I was going to be a mother. And when that reality was presented, that I wouldn't become a mom, was presented to me, I felt like I lost my identity as a person. So for me, it was a beautiful way to put all these emotions and all of these pathways that I have experienced and these stumbling blocks that have come to me in my life and put them here in this book, is a way that I have been able to become more fluid in the way that I talk about my story, the way that I can connect with other women, and the way that I can present a solution to a problem that they're having. The book is purposefully cut into 26 small chapters, like really digestible chapters, anything from how to handle baby shower invites when your best friend's having a baby and you think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can go to this baby shower. A chapter on that, a chapter on how do you communicate and build your relationship with your partner. For me, with my husband, how do we stay connected as a couple? So this
Very
book has
important.
allowed me to really verbalize on paper the things that I've been feeling and dealing with for so long.
I think one of the most powerful lines I've ever heard, because I deal so much with death, bury a loved one. And in many ways, you've experienced a death for not being able to bear a child. The line goes like this: grieving is a process, recovery is a decision. Grieving is a process, recovery is a decision.
And I think what's important with not only your book, but kind of your life commitment now, is what Father Greg had talked about during the break. He mentioned you reminded him of Susie Yale, who established Rainbows for God's Children. We were involved with the college-aged. What they found out was there are things that you grieve in your life that you don't realize it. Well,
For those who don't know, Rainbow for God's Children is parents who divorce, the death of a parent, and
through loss.
through a loss, sense of any amazing big loss in your life. Until Susie came along, there was no process talking about it. Just like when guys came home from World War II and Vietnam, you buried it. You came home from the war, you buried it, and you got on with life. So it went to high rates of alcoholism, but now they have ways of talking about it and sharing in community, because there's things we take in quietly come out in noisy ways. Things we take in quietly come out in noisy ways. When you say the loss of a loved one, can't have a child, so you take it in quietly, but it comes out in noisy ways. You start drinking more, gain weight, lose weight, road rage. It comes out in noisy ways that you think you're keeping within, but others can see he or she has changed.
And I think what will happen with this, the reason I mentioned Susie Yale was because we had to go through that process. We had to go through the whole self-support thing. I thought I was grieving my dad, and it ties into your story. I was grieving a loss of a child, in placement that we had to give up. I didn't know that, and you're going to be. How do you feel that? I mean, you're going to be running into people whose lives you will be changing.
Yes, I'm so proud to be able to do that, but also feel like this is such a blessing to me. Every day I go to bed and I am just so grateful that God has given me a voice and the strength to be on this side of it, because I wasn't always this easily communicative about what I've been through. I stayed silent for so long. And to be at this point, I feel like I'm opening the doors for so many other women to do that in their own form. And I hope there's millions of me out there talking about this and helping other women and feeling that support.
So you're in business, and they talk about what's your 5-year goal? In 5 years, how do you imagine this whole ministry? I call it a ministry.
Yes. Well, I want to I would love to travel the world and just fill auditoriums and just let women know that their story is seen and that they're relevant and that they're not forgotten. I think there's so much that women want to feel connected and see a figure of some sort that they can relate to. I'm just an average girl from Indiana. I'm no more special than anyone on this world, that if I could do this, and millions of other women could do the same.
And make women feel, and husbands too, that you're not less married.
Correct.
All right, that's huge.
Yes.
But now, a question I'm sure you've been asked, or at least people have thought about asking, is you and Jack unable to have children, came to that realization. So logically, someone would say, well, what about adoption?
Yeah, adoption is a beautiful option for many people. Something we considered when we left our treatments without a child. But there was a lot of fear, I think, for me, of it not working out, just like my road to biological parenthood didn't work out. And after going through that for 7 years, I didn't know if I would have the strength to find out that at the last minute the mother decided that the baby, she wanted to give it to a different family or keep the baby with her. And I judged myself for a long time because I thought, well, people often say, oh, you can always adopt. When you tell someone you can't have a child, they're like, well, you can always adopt. And for me, I feel oftentimes like people are judging that I didn't try hard enough, that I didn't want to be a mom bad enough because I left that option on the table, but it came to the point where I just didn't know if I could go through more heartbreak and disappointment if it didn't work out.
And you're being honest with yourself about that.
That's
Is
interesting.
there any, because sometimes what happens, your motherly instincts are still there. Are there nieces or nephews or any little ones that you feel like, that motherly instinct's kicking in anyway with them?
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I have a niece and nephew right here in Chicago, and we're very close. And my niece she's now 16, but she's become really involved in the work that I do. My Other's Day brunch, she works the check-in desk.
Beautiful.
So she's 4 years that I've been doing the brunch. And there's people who have asked me to be guardians if something happened to them, like when they're putting together their will.
Wow.
People
That's
that have asked
beautiful.
Jack and I to be guardians for their children if something happened. And to me, that is such a beautiful honor that they would consider us as potential parents or guardians to their children. So many ways it's really come back to me in that way.
A question Lana just thought of that I'm reflecting on 46 years of priesthood and dealing with many for counseling, that there have been a couple of times in which I've dealt with women who have had an abortion, and then when they were single, and then they get married, unable to have children, in their mind, and I had to work with this through them, in their mind, God punished me.
them.
Because I had an abortion, God's now getting back at me, saying, no children for you. And I said to him, God doesn't work that way. So how do you respond? I'm sure you've dealt with women already who've said, in telling their story, I've had an abortion, now can't have children, God is punishing me.
Yes, that I have worked with women that has been their story. Although it's not mine, there were times that I wondered, like, what did I do wrong in my life? Like, was I not nice to someone? Did I do something? So I think it's the forgiveness of yourself. I think that a lot of the work that I do is how do you look at yourself and say, I did the best that I could do at the time that I was in that situation. And forgive yourself for whatever it is that the transgressions that you are holding from a past life or a past experience that you've had. And I really think it's a lot of self-awareness and saying, okay, if this is not my possibility or my ability, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to take from this situation? Yeah. So I think it's beautiful that you're able to counsel your parishioners and people in their faith.
I have said more than one time in that situation. Some of the things, when I stole a candy bar when I was 7, so God caused an accident when I was 24 in a car, or can't have a child. I say, God does not work that way since you stole a candy bar or cheated on a test when you were in 7th grade. God doesn't work that way. Like, you did this, I'm going to get you. Well, we say that.
Tell Lana how you wished people Happy Mother's Day, not only in the bulletin, but I think this is an important, like a first step.
When I was at St. Mary of the Woods, there was a woman, her name was Helen, and every Mother's Day when I first got there, I'd say, on Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. For 2 or 3 years in a row, she'd catch me after Mass and say, Father Greg, I find Mother's Day so hard. I married, wasn't able to have children in our marriage, and she was an older woman, and I feel so left out. So I reflected on it, so I will always say, Happy Mother's Day to all the moms, and Happy Mother's Day to all women who love in a motherly way. I've had more women come up to me and say, thank you for including me. I've had a couple women say, how can you say that because you're including them? I said, because I am. Because you can Mother's Day for biological mom, but to all women who love in a motherly way, you include people, you don't exclude. Before we close, Lana, how can someone get a copy of your great brand new book?
Thanks. Well, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it online at Barnes & Noble, or go to my website, lanamanikowski.com.
Now spell that out.
LanaManikowski.
One more time.
LanaManikowski.
At?
www.lanamanikowski.com.
I'm so computer literate.
And where do they find your podcast?
My podcast is on Apple, Spotify. It's called the So Now What podcast, or on Instagram, I'm at lana.manikowski.
Well, I want to thank in a very special way Lana Manikowski and her brand new book, So Now What. Get it through Amazon. Lana, our prayers are with you. This is groundbreaking. The Lord has called you to a whole new ministry that you never dreamed of, and now doors are opening, but to be able to, your vocation, to give the sacrament of marriage, but now helping other women grieve through this process. And special thanks also to co-host Mark Teresi, who loves making fun of me.
Yes.
And I make fun of him right back. So, and give our very best warm wishes to Jack. And God bless you. We'll get you back on the program again. So,
Thank you.
Father Greg Sakowitz, along with Mark Teresi, and special thanks to our producers and engineers, Michael May and Clint Cottrell. To our listeners, may God bless all of you. And pray especially for our brand new Pope, Leo XIV. Have a great week.